Today on the New Computer Says Drew Says podcast, I will be discussing YouTube podcast analytics, a brand new computer, audio that's recorded at 800 decibels loud, that's right, and other stuff too, so go ahead and stick around. Let's start with some updates about YouTube podcasting, and the first thing we'll discuss is, can you create a podcast playlist with videos that are hosted on separate channels? We'll discuss the why you would want to do this, can you do this, and I'll share some concerns I have about the current implementation of this. Let's start with the why. If you've been creating a video podcast for any length of time, like the BSP, which I have been making video versions of since 2016, so 7 years, you've likely gone through multiple content creation and content promotion strategies, whether it be, I'm going to do a podcast network with a bunch of other video podcasts, or whether it be, I'm going to leverage my existing audience on this popular channel to try to grow the podcast. And then ending on, oh, this is standalone, let's create a standalone channel, which is exactly what I did. There were podcast episodes starting on Geeks Rising. Then I thought, I have a large following on Podcastage, let's upload episodes there. I realized people go there for tech and mic reviews, and they don't care about my ramblings. So I started the Bandrew Says Podcast YouTube channel. So over those 6 years, I have ended up with podcast episodes that are on 3 separate YouTube channels. That is why you might have a podcast playlist with videos hosted on multiple channels. Let's talk about the can you do it? That answer is simple. Yes. Yes, you can. How do I know this? I have done it. I can't say for certain that YouTube Music will populate the episodes that are hosted on separate channels, but as far as looking at the playlist within YouTube proper, I see the episodes on the Bandrew Says podcast channel and the Podcastage channel. You can't see any of the Geeks Rising episodes because those are all gone. They're outdated, they are poorly executed, they suck. So I have privated all of them. The first 124 episodes of this show gone into the ether. And I assure you, that is a massive benefit to society. That is a massive benefit to the world because it's saving a lot of people, a lot of pain, and a lot of torture. We have answered why. We have answered can you. Now let me share my concerns about the current implementation. There were no checks. There were no verifications that these podcast episodes belonged to me when I added them to the playlist. The reason that's an issue is what is stopping a random person from creating a playlist, adding every single BSP episode, and then creating the Bandrew Says podcast? What's stopping anybody from doing that? Why don't I create a playlist, say PewDiePie's podcast, and add every single one of his videos, mark it as a podcast, and now it populates in YouTube Music? That causes multiple issues. First off, it floods YouTube Music's podcast playlist or whatever with a bunch of nonsense, a bunch of non-podcasts. Secondly, it may confuse a potential listener. They may see this random person creating PewDiePie's podcast and assume that is actually PewDiePie creating that show. And then once they have subscribed, the individual who created that playlist can add anything they want. They can start adding racist videos. They can start uploading their own videos to it and manipulating the system to try to gain an audience. So that is what I am currently concerned with as far as this podcast playlist feature. What is YouTube doing to ensure that doesn't happen, that this feature is not being abused? Are they scanning the title and doing some kind of analysis to ensure, okay, every podcast title ends with BSP XXX, so we know it's an episode within the BSP? Are they analyzing the video, looking for faces? Okay, the face is the exact same from episode to episode to episode. That's okay. We understand this is part of the podcast. Are they looking at the artwork? Are they looking for theme songs? Are they looking for specific words in the podcast episode, in the video? How are they handling this? It's all very interesting, and I don't have the answers. Maybe I will contact YouTube Liaison to find out about that, because that is a little bit of a concern. Talking about shows or podcasts that have episodes across multiple channels, let's talk about YouTube Podcast Analytics. Last week, I raised the question, if I have a playlist with videos on multiple channels, do I get analytics from the videos that are on another channel? The answer again is very simple, and it is no. You do not get to see analytics for videos that you do not own. I verified this 2 separate ways. First, I went to my podcast playlist, clicked on analytics, and downloaded all of the data because this provides data on the top 500 videos. If you don't do this and you only look at the analytics in YouTube Studio, you get the top 50. The episodes I'm trying to find are 5 years old. They get very minimal views, so they would be in the bottom of the ranking. So I went in, opened this data up in Excel, and searched for any of the videos that are hosted on the Podcastage channel. I found none of them. No views were registered. They weren't even in the download. To verify this wasn't an anomaly, I went over and logged into the Podcastage channel, looked up those episodes, and verified that they did receive some views in the last couple of weeks, last 28 days. They didn't get a lot of views, but they got a handful of views. So if I was able to see those analytics in the podcast playlist download, that would tell me, okay, you do have access to those analytics, to those views. But being that they weren't in the download, I could tell you, you don't have access to them. That is the more extensive test that I ran. The simpler test, I asked somebody who works at YouTube. I asked Renee Ritchie, YouTube Liaison, and he said, have you tried making a podcast from a playlist with videos across multiple channels yet? Analytics will only show you data from the same channel. There you go. Those are all the updates that I have for you on YouTube podcasting. Those are the questions that I had that I wanted to answer, and I found both of the answers quite interesting. Let me know if you have any questions about YouTube podcasting in the comments, and I can dive a little bit deeper, dig a little bit deeper, and then harass Renee Ritchie to try to get more answers. Now let's talk about what I have been testing, and this is the Austrian Audio OC16. This costs $400. It is a cardioid-only, large diaphragm condenser microphone. The capsule in this thing is a ceramic capsule. Am I remembering that correctly? But the big selling point, it uses the same capsule as the OC18, which costs $800, and a similar capsule to the OC818, which costs $1,250. Technically, it is the same capsule as the OC818. The difference is the OC818 uses the CK12 and the 16 uses the CK6. That difference in number, the OC818 has 2 capsules inside, so you can get stereo output from this thing. That's the big difference. So you have the same capsule, same design there. The difference is the electronics and the manufacturing location. But that is what I am using. That is what you are listening to. How does it sound? What do you think? I have recorded a number of tests. I think it sounds quite good. I really enjoyed it on electric, on acoustic. Just outstanding sounding. Austrian Audio is just a great company. They make really good microphones. And that's completely unbiased. They've not sent me a single thing. I see all these other people getting Austrian Audio mics, and they even offered to send me this, and I was like, I'll just buy it. I don't, no thanks. Don't send it to me. I'll buy the heckin' thing. So, completely unbiased opinion, and I still think it's great, even though I've spent almost $2,000 on their mics. Whoops. Terrible business decision. Now let's talk about the real new thing that I have been testing. You have not been listening to it. especially not listening to it. A new computer. Finally! I was using a 2017 iMac since 2017. In 2020, it started to get a little bit long in the tooth. It was getting rough. It was stuttering along, puttering along, struggling with video editing. The fan would kick on, and in the background, you would hear this shh the entire time I was recording. What did I do? I didn't upgrade. I said, heck this, I'm reformatting the entire computer, and I started from scratch, and I eked out an extra 3 years of use out of that computer. I am proud of myself for that. But finally, I upgraded to the Mac Studio. The Ultra whatever. I don't know the chipset. It was a lot of money, but I am beyond thrilled with the performance. I'll tell you a story in a second, but I have edited a couple of videos on this thing. I have never once heard the fan turn on. I have never had a dropped frame. I have never had it struggle with playback of the video, even though there are 3 or 4 video streams. It has been an absolute dream coming from the iMac 2017, especially because it's all SSD. And I'm not even editing off the internal SSD. I'm editing off of an external SSD, and it's just flying by. It's flying by. It's a beautiful experience. It's really mind-blowing how much better it is. How much of an improvement in my life, in my mental health, it actually is. So I am thrilled about that. Now let me share a story time with you. I didn't do any research when I started installing stuff on this computer. I said, I need this, download it and install them. What I should have done is verify compatibility of all of the software with the Mac Silicon chips and with the new Mac operating system. I did not do that. And somewhere along the line, I installed a piece of software that was not compatible, and it created this boot loop. It would start up, the softwares would open, I'd get a pink flash, and then the computer would restart. Just kept happening over and over and over again. A smart person would say, oh, I'll just boot up in safe mode and remove the software that is causing this issue. My thought process was, I have tried to uninstall software before, and there's always this one file hidden in some deep, dark folder on my computer that I will never get rid of. And being that I am going to be using this computer for the next 5, 6, 7 years, I don't want that little pesky file hiding somewhere on my computer causing issues. So within 4 hours of having this computer up and running, I reformatted the entire thing and started from scratch. And then I did something very nerdy. I wrote down every single step that I took, every single piece of software in the exact order that I installed it in, to ensure I know what the culprit was if it happened again. I was 95% sure that it was my NAS manager, and I am still pretty sure that's what it was, but I wanted to make sure I knew exactly what I was installing and when I installed it, and if the issue occurred again, I could say it was that piece of software. So that is my experience with a new computer, and I could not be more happy. It is a dream come true to have a computer that doesn't have this extremely loud fan shh the entire time I'm recording. It's a dream to have a computer that can do multiple things. I can actually open up a web browser when I am exporting a file, exporting a video file, rendering a video file. It used to take me about 45 minutes to an hour to export one of these podcast episodes in video format. Last week, took me 5 minutes. That's pretty good. Pretty good update. Pretty good improvement. Is a beautiful, beautiful thing. So that's what I have been testing. Now let's jump to what you had to say, and the first comment comes from Tom Buck. The Tom Buck left a comment. He says, I can't imagine YouTube generating RSS feeds, but I think they've hinted at accepting outside feeds, which I would honestly be super excited for. Existing shows, even audio only, with years-long libraries of episodes having access to YouTube as a platform would be pretty awesome. It seems like they'd view it as a win because they'd now be playing ads on content they don't even host. Someone pays for hosting and then YouTube essentially just becomes a directory/player but can charge for ads. I'm also a dum-dum who doesn't understand a lot of things. Tom, thank you very much for the comment. I appreciate you very much. I have to admit something to you. When I read dum-dum, I read that in the voice of the Easter Island heads from Night at the Museum because I've seen that movie a number of times and I really enjoy it. Big dum-dum, bring me gum-gum. I love that movie so much. More than I should, probably. I don't think it's widely considered a great movie, but I have a blast watching it. I, too, have heard the rumor that YouTube will be implementing RSS feeds. The way that I understood it, they will allow you to add RSS feeds to YouTube Music. That was my understanding of the announcement. But if they are going to allow you to add an RSS feed to your YouTube page, that's amazing. That is amazing because that will solve one of the biggest, or that will potentially solve one of the biggest complaints about podcasting, discoverability. If they allow people to import RSS feeds to YouTube and each individual audio file is then searchable, it also has the potential to be picked up by the algorithm. That would be huge. That would be absolutely huge. I think there are a few hurdles that they have to overcome, though. Number one would be moderation. Podcasts, if it is hosted on some other place, they say a lot of stuff that doesn't abide by YouTube's terms of service. So how is YouTube going to handle that? When you submit an RSS feed to be added to a YouTube channel, do they moderate each individual episode? Do they say, okay, we're going to accept 99% of your podcast, but episode 301, 192, and 73 will be rejected because they violate this policy? Or if they realize, okay, these 3 episodes violate the policy, we reject the RSS feed completely. So how will they be handling moderation? Because that's a serious thing with YouTube. And podcasting has always been that free place on the internet because it is decentralized. It will be very interesting to see how they do that. Same question goes for YouTube Music. How are they going to be handling moderation for RSS feed podcasts that aren't in the YouTube Music directory, aren't hosted on YouTube? The second thing is ownership. This will be even more interesting. How will they verify ownership of an RSS feed for a YouTube channel? What I mean, can anybody with a YouTube channel just grab a bunch of RSS feeds and then add them to their YouTube channel, thereby stealing that content and using that content to try to grow their own following? Or will YouTube force you to add some kind of code to your RSS feed to verify that you are the owner? And if that is the case, will they limit the amount of channels you can add your RSS feed to? Because what if I do have that podcast network YouTube channel, Geeks Rising, and I want the RSS feed there, but I also want the RSS feed on the Bandrew Says podcast channel? Can I do that? Or will they say, we need to verify ownership and we can only assign ownership of this RSS feed to one YouTube channel? That's another thing they will have to worry about. I don't think there will be any issues with monetization on YouTube, because if you are submitting your RSS feed to them to host on your YouTube channel, or not host, but to display your RSS feed on your YouTube channel, you're giving them authorization to put ads there. And if you're part of the YPP, the YouTube Partner Program, they will likely share that revenue with you. Would be interesting to see the cut that they offer there. I think the typical is 70-30. Creator gets 70, YouTube gets 30. But you would imagine if YouTube isn't hosting it, they could give you a bit more. We'll have to wait and see. I would love to see this happen. And I don't think these issues, these hurdles, are insurmountable. They're Google, they're YouTube. They have a lot of money. They have a lot of resources. They have a lot of experts. But are they asking the correct experts how to implement stuff? Or are they assuming I'm an expert in this one area that must make me an expert in this other area? I don't think a lot of actual podcasters, audio-first podcasters, were consulted on this YouTube podcast rollout. I've been listening to a lot more podcasts about podcasting again. Everybody. I shouldn't say that because I can't say that for certain. I haven't listened to every single podcast about podcasting. It seems as though a lot of podcasters are baffled by what YouTube has been doing. So I don't think they consulted the podcasting experts, the audio-only podcast experts. Great comment, Tom. I appreciate you, and I agree. That would be super duper exciting if they allow for that. Next, we have a comment from Stefan. He says, ID3 tags. You can have a different episode art image in the RSS feed and in the ID3, so you have a different image shown on an MP3 player and in the podcatcher. M4A for podcasting isn't standard, isn't? Stefan, you are correct on both fronts. As far as ID3 tagging, you can tag an audio file with a piece of artwork that is different from the artwork in your RSS feed. That is true. And as far as the most common, the most regular, the standard audio file for podcasting, it is not M4A, it is MP3. I just prefer M4A because it sounds better at similar bit rates. So 128 kilobits per second MP3 versus 128 kilobits per second M4A, the M4A sounds better. It sounds significantly better, a lot less lossy. And as far as using that non-standard audio file, I have never run into playback issues on any podcatcher. Any podcatcher that I have tried, other than one. That would be Spotify. And the issue wasn't playback, it was acceptance. Spotify wouldn't even accept a podcast episode that was M4A. But I still uploaded my show as an M4A file for everybody else outside of Spotify because I wanted people to have that higher quality audio at the same or a similar file size to MP3 with the same bitrate. I wanted people to have that better audio. The workaround to still have my show in Spotify was I had my podcast host, I elbowed them and said, hey, can you re-encode this audio file to MP3 for this very specific RSS feed that is exclusive to Spotify? Elbow, thanks. And they did it. So everybody outside of Spotify was getting this great sounding M4A file, and then Spotify was getting this MP3 file. So there you go. Not standard at all, but perhaps it should be because it sounds better. It's not going to be. Certainly not going to be. Next, we have a comment from Matthew, and he says, first-time listener but long-time viewer on Podcastage. Love the level of detail and helpful advice you packed into the Ask Bandrew segments. Excited to hear what you think about the NTH100s. Thank you very much for the comment, Matthew, and the kind words. Welcome to the dark side of knowing and listening to the Bandrew Says podcast. NTH100s. I must start with a disclosure. These were sent to me by road. I don't know when. I think it was included in the box with the Rodecaster Pro 2, but I don't review headphones, so they just sat in the box. They sat on my shelf unopened. So they were sent to me by road. I did not buy them. The reason I pulled them out. Recently, I started using closed back headphones again. I was using the M50Xs because I just had them out. The reason I started using them again is I started to get very annoyed at the bleed of the click track while I was recording music. When I was recording the music section of my reviews, the singing section in particular, When I was done singing and the music bed had died down, you just hear this click, 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 click. And it was maddening. So I said, this needs to stop. And I went back to closed backs. So why did I throw the M50Xs back up on the shelf, back up on the hook, and I put on the NTH100s? Jason from Painfully Honest Tech said, hey, give them a shot. They're pretty good. Pretty good. Give them a shot. So I pulled them out of the box, and that's what I have been using. My thoughts? Very comfortable. Extremely comfortable. That is the first thing that I noticed. The sound profile I find quite enjoyable. Easy to listen to, which is kind of what I go for with my headphones. I do not like hyper-detailed sounds because I have little baby beta ears. Little baby beta ear Bandrew. I don't like, I struggle with Beyerdynamics sound profile. These are quite relaxed, easy to listen to. I won't say soft, but they're nice. I enjoy the sound. I don't use these for audio playback, though. These are strictly for monitoring. For audio playback, I still use the HD650s because I know them well, and it's a sound profile that I just love. Something I will point out, I have heard that the NTH100s are not durable and that they break very easily. So as far as monitoring while recording, I am thrilled with the sound profile. I am thrilled with the comfort, but I will report back on the durability because I have no issues so far, but I have heard they aren't very durable. Matthew, thank you very much. Let us jump to the Ask, my favorite part of the show, the Ask Bandrew segment. Welcome to the Ask Bandrew segment, the segment where you ask me and I answer you. If you want to send in a question, go to askbandrew.com, askbandrew.com. That is askbandrew.com. There are instructions on how to send in audio and video submissions. I do prefer those because we get to hear how you sound on your audio equipment. You get a break from hearing me speak, and you don't have to suffer through me trying to read your emails. And that's a benefit for everybody. So let us go to the first voice submission from Sören from Germany.
Hello, Bandrew. I'm Sören, I'm from Germany, and I have 2 questions again. The first one is, how do I set up my equalizer to sound as natural as possible without having someone else being next to me doing it who does hear me in real life to compare and adapt it directly? Most microphones do not sound natural for me without EQ. I change it pretty often and I have set it to how I hear myself, but some have said I do sound pretty different in real life compared to when they hear me online. Also, how would you change my EQ to make it sound better for your liking? The second one is it possible to get an audio file of your soundtrack you play at the end of your podcasts? It sounds so beautiful. Thank you for all your effort to share your knowledge about audio with us, and I'm sorry for my bad pronunciation. Goodbye.
Sören, thank you very much for the voice submission. I really do appreciate it. Your question is, how do you EQ your microphone to sound natural without having somebody sitting directly next to you, listening to your voice in the room, and then EQing your microphone to sound like that? Great question. Difficult question. It's going to be difficult to accomplish this. It's going to take a lot of experimentation, a lot of feedback, and you're going to be winging it. But I came up with I think a pretty good idea here. I thought about this all week long. I am sure somebody's going to be listening to this and say, well, yeah, I thought of that in 5 seconds. Well, give me a break. I'm kind of a dum-dum too. Big ol' dum-dum need gum-gum. I don't chew gum anymore, but I need some gum-gum. That is off topic. I need to refocus. To do so, I am going to ask you a question. What do you think the biggest difference between spoken word audio recorded with a microphone and spoken word audio heard with your ear actually is? My theory is distance from the audio capture device, whether it be the microphone or whether it be the listener's ear. When you are talking to somebody in the real world, in the same room as them, how far away are you from their ear? Are you 6 inches away? saying, hey, dude, I just need to tell you about this microphone. It is so cool. Dude, listen to this microphone. It's so tight. Are you doing that right next to their ear? Probably not. Chances are you're a meter away from them. You're 2-3 feet away. So here is my experiment, or here is my recommendation to you. Set up the microphone that you want to use 3 feet away. Record yourself. Talk for a minute. Then move the microphone closer to where it's going to be used while you're in your online chats. Record yourself for another minute, and then EQ that close mic to sound like the microphone that was recorded 1 meter away. That will give you a much more realistic, a much more expected sound out of your recorded audio, because that will mimic the frequency range, the frequency response that somebody would hear when you are a meter away, as opposed to this massively exaggerated proximity effect that you get when you close mic. I personally prefer the close mic'd sound. Some people will disagree with me. Hey, that's fine. I enjoy it. So there you go. That is my recommendation. I'm not going to give you advice on how to adjust your EQ. Listening on the headphones, they sounded fine. It sounds like you are going for a very specific tonal property, and you need to develop that on your own, because I am not sitting in the room right next to you. I'm not there. And if you want your microphone to sound like that, you need to EQ it to sound like that, and I can't give you the answer to that. There you go, Zurin. Thank you very much for the question. Next, we have a voice submission from SoundSpeeds, but I need to give you a little bit of a backstory. Alan is not the biggest fan of 32-bit floating point. I am pretty sure he thinks it's mostly useless. Set your gain appropriately, you'll be fine. So after I started talking about 32-bit floating point, because I was testing out the Rode NT1 and playing around with it, he decided to troll me. A little bit of a backstory as my air conditioner turns on, because why wouldn't there be some more noise like that? Helicopters have been flying over all day, cars revving outside, why not a bit of air conditioning as well? A little bit of icing on the cake, a little bit of air con on the recording. So backstory or technical input, technical knowledge, information is what I'm trying to say. See, noises just throw me off my game. 32-bit floating point is not magic. It can still clip, but it clips around 770 dBFS. Yeah, 770 dBFS. So what did Alan do? What did Alan do? Alan, as I clip in 24-bit, he decided to send me a 32-bit floating point audio file that peaks at 800 dBFS. That's right. I was sent an audio file that peaks at 800 dBFS. So I tried to normalize that to 0 dBFS, and this is what I got.
This thing or something, right?
I have to admit, it sounds very cool, very robotic, very futuristic. I could use that to do some kind of sound design, some kind of robotic sound design. I don't know. You could do something cool with that sound. The reason it still sounds like that, if it peaks at 800 dB and you clip 32-bit floating point at 770 dB, that's like clipping 24-bit audio at plus 30 dBFS. 30 decibels of clipping, that's going to be unsalvageable. Just garbage. So thanks a lot, Alan. Really appreciate it. Freaking 800 dBFS, you're a monster. And if you want to hear what he actually sent in, here is the actual 24-bit audio that he didn't boost 800 decibels. What a jerk.
Hello, Bandrew Says Podcast listeners. This is Alan from Soundspeeds, and okay, all right, I guess I should also say hello to Bandrew, too, as the host of this thing or something, right? Hey there, buddy. How's it going? Okay, here's the reason why I'm submitting this audio to you in 32-bit floating point. A lot of people talk about 32-bit floating point as the messiah for being able to declip any audio, but there is a limitation. If you happen to record your audio at a level of at least 770 dB, then there is no going back from that. You are going to clip your audio. Now, who in the world would do that? Me. Well, let's see if you can declip this audio, Bandrew. And just to help you out here, to show you that this audio did not actually clip when I recorded it in 24-bit fixed point, I'm submitting this audio to you in 24-bit as well. So good luck trying to declip this audio here in 32-bit floating point, Bandrew.
Normally, I thank people for sending in audio files, but I don't think I'm going to this time. I'm not going to thank Alan for sending that in. He did give me fair warning, hey, don't play this back. It's 800 dBFS, don't play this back. So at least he gave me fair warning, but I'm not going to thank him for that. It's interesting. I've never seen audio that loud. Who thinks of this stuff? Legitimately, who thinks of this? You're a monster. The last submission comes from Fatty McFatface. Take it away, Fatty McFatface.
Hello, fellow Earthlings, and hello, Bandrew. Bandrew, my questions to you revolve around your older content as well as your re-review series. If I watch an older video that has had a remaster made of it, say for example your SM7B review, for some reason, the older review has a lot worse audio quality than the modern one, even though both videos use the same microphone. Is this difference caused by YouTube changing their audio processing over the years? Or is it something that you changed with the way that you record your videos? Is the difference in audio quality the reason why you make the re-review series? Or do you do it because you have better testing methodology than you did in the past? On an unrelated note, Bandrew, you're an amazing content creator. You've given the internet a wealth of information so that we can all make better purchases with our money, and I wish I would have found you a lot sooner because this microphone sucks and it has 2 layers of EQ on it.
Thank you very much for the voice submission. Your question is, when I do re-reviews of microphones, why does the re-review sound better? And why am I making those re-reviews? I think I have answered a very similar question in the past, but I will go ahead and re-answer it. As far as YouTube storage practices, I don't have any documentation on that. I don't know if videos past a certain age get downgraded to save them on some server costs. I have no idea. What I do know is that I have the original raw video files of my reviews, and I listened to the original SM7B review, and I listened to the re-review of the SM7B. Yeah, the original one sounds like trash, even in the raw video format. So there's no difference there. Raw video, the original sucks, the new one sounds better. So it's not the YouTube compression that is actually destroying it. I think there are a few contributing factors here. The biggest shift is my presentation and speaking style. If you watch my early videos as I move around my armrest and create these clicks, if you hear this the entire episode, that's what it is. It's so annoying. I just randomly bump it and then I get this little clickety clack. I apologize for that. So if you watch my early videos, I'm talking like this. Hey, greetings, Earthlings, and welcome back to Podcasters. Today I'm reviewing the SM7B. And that is terrible to listen to. First off, I sound very tense. You can tell why I stopped doing that because now my voice is raw. It's very tense. It's very unpleasant to listen to. It's very shouty. And it lacks any kind of resonance. First off, I don't have a very resonant voice, but I do have a little bit. And when I talk like this, it eliminates all of it. And that is how I used to talk in my reviews, or that is how I used to scream in my reviews. Secondly, my microphone placement and my microphone technique are significantly better now. So I am better at placing the microphone and ensuring that I am a a consistent distance to the microphone. That would be a big impact. I am also much more careful about levels. I make sure I am setting my level with sufficient headroom, and then I am boosting it in post, but making sure I never exceed 0 dBFS because that will end up sounding bad. I think some of my early videos did actually exceed 0 dBFS. And once you download those and play them back, the YouTube file, you can tell. You can tell big time that it exceeded 0 dBFS. I also have different sound treatment. Back in the early days, I just had the cheap foam you buy off Amazon that doesn't really do that much. Dampens it a little bit, but now I have proper audio treatment, which is also going to impact the sound, I would say quite a bit. And then, this is embarrassing to admit, I did some tests to verify the difference wasn't massive. But when I first started, for the first year or so of the channel, I avoided recording in a DAW because I was under the impression after going through forums, oh no, DAWs will impart too much of a tone onto your recording. You can't use a DAW because Logic Pro sounds so significantly different from Pro Tools. So what did I do? What was my solution? Record the audio via QuickTime. And I did a test. I did a test recording right before this. Maybe QuickTime has changed how they record audio, how they process audio, but the difference between Audio Hijack and QuickTime wasn't massive. It wasn't a massive difference. It's possible that it has changed in the last 7 years. But for the SM7B review, I don't think I was recording in QuickTime. I think I was recording in a DAW at that point. So that wouldn't have been a contributing factor. But now I record 24-bit, 48 kilohertz. I think the biggest thing is going to be my presentation and speaking style. I am calmer. I am much more natural. This is how I speak most of the time, unless I'm just talking like, hey guys, how's it going? This is kind of how I talk most of the time when I'm not on microphone. It's because I'm kind of a low energy person. I'm kind of like chilled out and relaxed. But when I'm presenting a video, I understand. Man, nobody wants to listen to this. Hey, how's it going? Yeah, I'm doing well. Thanks. Nobody wants to listen to that. They'll fall asleep. So I get a little bit more excited, a little bit more excitable. So that is my speculation on the difference. And as far as why I do the re-reviews, because my original videos are terrible. My original reviews are just god-awful. They consist of me screaming at you, screaming into the microphone. They lack proper consistency. I didn't measure how far I was away from the microphones back then. I just wung it. I winged it. I didn't have any testing parameters. Now I also have a bunch more tests. Some would argue too many tests. But I think that allows people to make a more informed purchasing decision. Is it smart for the YouTube algorithm? No. I should be making 5-minute reviews. Maybe I will do that as an experiment. I'll do 1 or 2 videos where I do the older style, minus the screaming. Here's a 5-minute video. I like it. Bye. That would be pretty interesting to see how that performs compared to a full-fledged 20-minute review. Okay, there you go. That's my answer to you. I appreciate all of the submissions. I appreciate your questions, your comments. I appreciate you for coming by this week. You are a beautiful human being, and I love you from the bottom of my heart. I hope you have an amazing Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Next Sunday, I will be back. I will be talking at you, and I appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming by. Talk to you next week. Bye-bye. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Boop.
This has been a Geeks Rising production. Your executive producer is Bandrew Scott. For more information, head over to www.geeksrising.com.